Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to Lola Speaks Podcast. I missed you all. I hope you got a chance to check out Mindful Monday and Thoughtful Wednesdays? I don't even know. Mindful Mondays and something Wednesdays. Why I can't remember the titles of my shows. The title of my days. But anyways, it's Freaky Friday. Yes, we love a good Freaky Friday. Now, I want you guys to know that this is the place where we talk about growth, healing, real life lessons, and things, and the things people don't always say out loud. And like I said, today is Freaky Friday. Now, when I say Freaky Friday, I'm not talking about anything wild like that. I'm talking about those moments in life when things get a little mentally freaky, when emotions start running the show, and logic is sitting in the corner like, are you serious right now? Are you serious? Like, for real? Because things do tend to get a little freaky on Friday, for whatever the reason shall be. But if we're being honest, we all have had moments where we acted out of emotion instead of logic. Maybe you said something you shouldn't have said. Maybe you reacted before you had all the information. Maybe you made a decision in the heat of the moment and later you thought to yourself, yeah, that probably wasn't the smartest move. And truth is, emotions are powerful, but emotions are not always wise. So today we're talking about what happens when emotions take over logic and how to stop letting temporary feelings make permanent decisions. This is a big one because a lot of people suffer, or a lot of people have a hard time with letting their emotions control everything. Acting out of emotions can ruin a lot of relationships. It can ruin friendships. It can ruin a lot of things. That's why it's very important to pause and take a step back sometimes, or say, hey, can I get a moment? I'm a little emotional and I don't want to act out of my emotions. Your emotions are not the enemy. However, feeling things deeply doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. We feel joy, we feel love, we feel anger, we feel hurt, we feel disappointment. And sometimes those emotions come fast and strong. And in one moment, you're calm. In the next moment, something triggers you. And now your whole mood has shifted. Your tone changes, your thoughts change, your perspective changes. And the dangerous part about emotions is that when they take over, they feel justified in the moment. Because you're going to be like, well, that's how I felt. 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 And that'd be the number one thing. Well, that was how I felt. Well, that's how I feel. And it's like, okay, how do you feel now that you took a step back and really thought about it? Or did you ever even try to think about it in a logical way? Because when you're angry, you feel like you're right. When you're hurt, you feel like you need to defend yourself. When you're emotional, logic suddenly gets quiet. But here's the thing. Just because a feeling feels strong doesn't mean it's leading you in the right direction. And that's just what it is. Acting pretty out of emotion can change relationships. It can lead impulsive decisions. Sometimes it creates problems that logic could have prevented. Growth is learning how to pause before reacting. What do y'all think about that? How many times have you literally sat down or was having a conversation with someone or having a heated moment and you actually took the time to pause before reacting to something that could possibly, or reacting in a way that could possibly change the narrative of that relationship because you were responding or acting out of emotions? This is how domestic situations occur when lovers kill their partner because they were acting out of an emotion and not thinking logically, not thinking of the consequences this action could have on the rest of their life. It's important to disassociate emotions and try to really look at it from a different lens and start to really think more logically. Because when you think logically, the situation can change. The outcome can change. The outcome will change. The outcome will be different. One of the biggest mistakes people make is making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Think about how many situations could have gone differently and so if someone just paused, if you just took a pause in an argument, took a pause in that relationship, took a pause in that friendship, took a pause in that business decision, and even took a pause in family situations. Sometimes people say things they can never take back. They do things that they could never take back, all because they reacted emotionally instead of thinking logically. We've all done it. We've all done it. I've done it. I've done it. We've all done it. We've all done it. I've done it. You know, the ability to think logically cannot come at the moment when emotions are high and feelings are at the surface. But I've always said to myself, I'd rather pause in the moment and really think about how I'm feeling before I react in a way I'll regret later. Now, like I said, I'm not saying I'm perfect because I've definitely acted out of emotions or impulse in a moment when I just blurted out something and I regretted it later. Even now, there's a situation that I had with an ex that I wish I wouldn't have said some of the things that I said. I wish I would have took my emotions out of it and thought about it more logically, or I wish I would have just paused and walked away. I wish I would have just said, you know what? I'm not even going to go there. I'm just going to go ahead and exit stage left and, leave this situation on a good note instead of saying the things that I said because, things could have just went a different way. And I said some things that I regret to this day. Absolutely regret to this day. And because the relationship wasn't horrible, it wasn't so bad that I had to say the things that I said just to walk away from it. Like I could have just walked away with my head held high and not succumbed to my emotions. My emotions took the best of me. My emotions said everything that I felt needed to be said in that moment. But when I look back in that moment, I could have just walked away. I could have just walked away. I really could have just walked away, because once the emotion settles down, you realize that the reaction was bigger than the situation. That's why I say that emotional discipline is so important because emotions are temporary, but the consequences of emotional reactions can last a long time. And because I reacted out of emotion, I no longer have that friendship from the relationship that once was. Acting out of an emotion, caused a relationship that was a friendship and it ended. The relationship definitely was over, but the friendship didn't have to be severed. But however, my emotions severed that friendship that we still could have had to this day. And who knows, things could definitely change. Maybe one day I'll apologize. I had to laugh because apologizing for how I feel is very unlike me. Okay? If you know me, you know me. And sometimes, maybe, I'm going to tell you in a minute, my feelings are valid. Okay? How I feel is valid. But no, the emotions that I felt in that moment weren't valid. The things that I said in that moment weren't valid. They weren't deserved. So yeah, if I had the opportunity to apologize, I definitely would apologize. And just move forward with my life. Not to say that I would apologize and hope that things could return to the way that they once were. No, I'm content with the decision of us not having a relationship or a friendship. At this moment, I am. However, I do still regret the way that I went about it because it could have been definitely handled in a different way. It could have been handled in a different way. It could have been handled in a different way. Because, emotions move fast. Logic definitely moves slow. Emotions are immediate. Logic requires you to pause. When something happens, your emotions respond instantly. Your brain reacts before you even have time to process. That's why people say things like, I reacted before I thought, because emotions don't wait for logic to catch up. Logic requires reflection. Logic asks questions like, is this worth responding to? Is this really what they meant? Is this situation as serious as it feels right now? And I think that was a moment for me to pause because I could have thought about like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go there with you. Like, I don't think it's worth this kind of energy. I don't think it's worth this. Like sometimes certain situations require a pause. Like, seriously. But, my emotions was loud. Logical questions was not popping up in my mind at the time. And I reacted instead of responding. So, that is what that is. But that is what that is. And yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of people can relate to that because we be tripping sometimes. We be tripping sometimes. We really be like all up in our emotions, We be all up in our emotions, but in Proverbs 29:11, and I'm always going to take it back to the good book. In Proverbs 29:11, fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise brings calm in the end. And that's why it's important to pause and reflect, and not even reflect, but pause and to really think, is this worth it? Because one of the most powerful skills you can develop in life is the pause. The ability to pause before reacting. Because not every situation deserves an immediate reaction. Not every comment deserves a response. And that's something that I try to teach my kids. Like when I ask them, okay, so, or like say for instance, my son drives, right? So I say like, hey, this is a red light, or hey, this is a stop sign, because he has the habit of just pausing and then going. And I'm like, okay, you need to actually stop at the stop sign, look left, look right, look left, look right again, and then go. And he has to say something. He has to comment. He has to say something like, I know, Ma, it's a stop sign, da, da, da. And then it becomes a back and forth situation. And then I always say, that every comment doesn't deserve a response. Sometimes you just listen, take it in, and just take heed to what I said. Everything does not need a response, because it goes back to what my grandma used to tell me: choose your battles wisely. Just because somebody says something to you, or trying to critique you, or trying to help you out in a way that may have you reacting in a defensive manner. It don't need some things just don't need to be responded to. You get what I'm saying? Not every moment requires you to defend yourself. Sometimes wisdom looks like silence. Sometimes wisdom looks like walking away. Sometimes wisdom looks like saying, you know what? I need a moment to think about that. That pause can save relationships. That pause can save friendships. That pause can save you from preventing you from saying something that you might regret later. Because when emotions settle down, logic finally gets a chance to speak. And when logic shows up, you often realize the situation didn't need the reaction you were about to give. So think before you speak is a real thing. Think before you speak, because 9 times out of 10, I promise you, that first thought that popped up in your mind expeditiously, you wouldn't have thought of if you actually paused in the moment to think. Really, really, really think on why you are feeling the way that you feel. And you'll probably be like, I'm just going to walk away right now. This ain't even worth my time. Because emotional maturity is not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about learning how to manage what you feel. A mature person still feels anger. A mature person still feels hurt. A person, you still feel disappointment. But the difference is you don't allow those feelings to control your behavior. That's it. You acknowledge the emotion, but you choose your responses carefully. And that level of emotional control is something that takes growth. It takes self-awareness. It takes learning how to step back and ask yourself, is this reaction helping the situation or making it worse? Because sometimes reacting emotionally feels good in the moment, but later you realize it only created more problems. And that be true. Like, now you got to go back 10 steps because now your emotions then took over, and Now you in a state of regret because your emotional decisions cause all of these things. You're in a state of regret. You're regretting. You probably in a broken room now. You the relationship is broken. You've missed opportunities. Like, things happen through emotional decisions. They cause all of these things. And sometimes God calls us to operate in wisdom even when our feelings are loud. Even when our feelings are loud. We gotta, sometimes he say, hey, hold on. And like, I know me now because I've grown so much. Like, I used to react out of emotion so much. To now, I just be like, God, God, if you hear. God, if you hear, guide my tongue. Lord God, watch the words that's coming out of my mouth, because I don't want to say something that I'm going to regret, or that's going to cause me my job, or that's going to cause me my relationship, or that's going to cause me my friendship, or that's going to cause me jail time. Because when emotions get high, you don't think logically. It's just go mode when emotions on the scene. It's just go mode. But let me take it back to the good book, because in James chapter 1, verse 19, it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because we have to assess the situation clearly. There's always a spiritual side to everything. Self-control is one of the hardest disciplines to develop. Take a minute to think about that. It's one of the hardest disciplines to develop, because emotions are so loud that you're going to think that, okay, I'm right because that's what I felt. That's what I feel. Like I said in James chapter 1, verse 19, it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That is emotional discipline. And that kind of wisdom helps you avoid reacting out of pure emotion, because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is react immediately. It's not the strongest thing you can do is not act immediately. Sometimes strength looks like patience. I lost my train of thought just now. I was about to say something and it just disappeared, and it was so good. I'm mad it disappeared, but it's going to come back to me. And when it does, I'm just going to throw it on in there because it was good in the moment when I just said that. It's something that old people say too. Oh, it's just to think before we speak. Think before we speak, because that's basically what this, this is it. You know how people say, and it just disappeared again. That's wild. You know how people say, don't listen to respond. Don't listen to respond. That's the same thing. Quick to listen, slow to speak. You know how when you be having a conversation with somebody, or a dialogue, or telling somebody about your feelings, and they be so quick to respond, and you haven't even got your whole thought process out your mouth, from in your head out your mouth, and they ready to go ahead and attack. And it's like, whoa, you don't even know what I'm about to say right now, but you just so ready to react or so ready to respond to what I'm saying. And I haven't even fully said it. Nothing that I've said can fully register in your brain for you to think before you speak, because you're so ready to jump in and say something. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Think before you speak, slow to anger. Think before you speak so that you can think logically about the things that you're about to say to the response. Think before you speak so that you can think about what your response is to whatever we're talking about logically, so that you're not responding out of anger or out of an emotion because what I said, or because what someone said kind of triggered you in a way to where now you got to respond out of your emotions instead of your logical state of mind. That's all that's saying. Slow to respond. Slow to respond. Slow to anger. Quick to listen. Just listen. Because sometimes once a person says everything that they got to say, you don't even have a response for it. You just be like, okay, I heard you. I hear you. And I guarantee you that's going to happen more times than not. you will be surprised about how much you get across the table, or you get off the table when you just sit back and listen to what somebody has to say to you instead of responding so quickly. You know what I mean? Like it takes time to get there. It's not an overnight process, especially if you're so used to being, quick out the mouth, saying whatever you feel because that's how you feel. And it's a lot of people saying that's how I am, and this is who I am, and you gotta accept me for who I am. And it's like, no, sweetheart, I don't have to accept you for being rapid out the mouth. I don't have to accept that. And that's where boundaries come into place too. Like if you're on this, you want a peaceful, you more peaceful than argumentative, and you know that you're a person that listens before you speak, and you process things, and you would rather respond out of logic than emotions, and then you got an emotional ass partner or emotional ass whoever, take a back seat to that, because that's disrupting your peace. That's disrupting everything that you work so hard for. All of that, this is who I am, is BS, because change is inevitable. Growth, we all should want to grow. We all should want to change for the betterment of ourselves. Not even for nobody else, but for you. You should want to grow for you. You should want to change for you, to see a different version of you. So if you're one of those people who just react out of emotions 100% of the time, take some time to yourself and really learn how to react out of logic, or think before you speak. See how that works out for you, and I'll guarantee you're gonna feel so much better, so much lighter, so much more heard, so much more seen, because nobody's listening when you're emotional. Nobody can really process that when you're emotional, because you're just saying things. You're just saying things that sometimes just don't make sense to the other person, because you probably yelling. You probably, you know what I'm saying? Your face probably all scrunched up. You're probably talking with your hands because you're so emotional that everything is going. Your adrenaline is rushing, and you on 10, or you want 100, and the person you talking to is probably at a 0. Like, Lord Jesus, help her, help them. Because one thing I know, I'm not talking to nobody who on 100 and I'm on level 0, because I don't want to take it there. I don't want to take it to 100. I'm trying to talk to you like a human being. I'm trying to talk to you with some logic in this situation. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm not trying to yell back and forth. I'm not trying to go there. I just want us to have a decent conversation, to where we can leave this alone at the end of the day, that to where both parties are understood, and we can just, we can move on with this. We can leave this where it's at and move on to something better. We can go on to something much better, and we've learned from the situation, and we can grow from this situation, and we could be on to another path. You know what I mean? So, if there's one thing that I want y'all to take away from today's episode, is your feelings are valid, but your feelings should not always be in charge of your decisions. That's a big one. Your feelings are valid, but you shouldn't always be Jesus. Your feelings are valid, but your feelings should not always be in charge of your decisions. Emotions are powerful, but wisdom requires pause. You know how they say, you got that gray hair, you got some wisdom in you. So start using that wisdom, because a lot of us got some gray hairs up here in our heads and in other parts of our bodies. And we need to start using that wisdom that God sprinkled up on us, okay? Because learning to pause before reacting can change the direction of your relationship, your opportunities, and even your peace of mind. And even your peace of mind, I stress this a lot, because reacting can cause you a lot of things. Reacting out of pure emotion can cause you a lot. It can put you in situations that you wasn't even thinking that it was going to put you in. Every time I see a video of a police stop or something like that, and people are so emotional, like, oh, I'm not doing this, they start yelling at the police officer, and the police officer's on 0. And they like, ma'am, can I please have or ma'am, sir, can I please have your ID, your license and registration? And they're like, I'm not giving you my license and registration. And the police officer like, can you please give me your license and registration? And then they're like, I said I'm not giving you my license and registration. Because anger is an emotion. Anger is an emotion, and if you want to believe it or not, that's an emotion. So when that police stopped you, you was mad as hell. Because why is this police officer stopping me? So as soon as they come to the window, here you go, already on 100, already on 10, yapping at the police officer, and the police officer ain't even said but 2 words. And you angry. And granted, we all want to know why you pulled me over. Sometimes they're going to come to the window and be like, okay, I pulled you over because blah, blah, blah. Or sometimes they're going to say, let me get your license and registration first. Because they want to run you, see what you got on you, then come back and tell you why they pulled you over. You know? And in those situations, people be reacting like that and then causing more harm than good. Because now you adding emotions, then now you're going to raise the emotions of the freaking police officer, excuse me. And things just going to go left. And I'm just saying this because I see a lot of police videos on my Instagram, and I always say, well, why did these people act a fool? Especially when it's just a simple traffic stop. Like the people act a fool immediately. And I'll just be like, Jesus, it could have went so different if you just did what this officer told you to do. And I know sometimes we be scared, and we were scared, and being scared is an emotion. Anger is an emotion. And, when those emotions hit you, you just react because the logical side of you is gone, because now you're in a different, headspace. You're angry, you're scared, you don't know what to do. But the next time, in the times of you getting emotional, just take a break, take a step back, give logic a chance to speak, like give it a chance to come to the surface. Because sometimes the smartest response is the one you take time to think about first. The smartest response is the one you take time to think about first. Just think, take a moment. Hold on, what's going on? And why am I feeling this way? What? Like, let that emotional intelligence sink in. Recognize what you feel. Understand why you feel it. Respond instead of reacting. Take a moment. Because everything isn't worth responding to out of emotions. Because, the emotions are immediate. And logic does require you to pause and kind of think. But I guarantee you that pausing and thinking about your reaction is going to work out 10 times better for you than it would if you just react out of that emotion. You know what I mean? So give yourself that moment. Give yourself that pause. Give yourself that, because so much more can happen. So much more can be said. So much more can be solved, because we don't want to create more problems that the logic would have prevented. Growth is learning how to pause before reacting. Okay? And remember, fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. And also remember, be slow to speak. Slow to speak. Quick to listen. And slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Listen before you respond. Listen before you respond. Listen before you respond. That is the most important part of this podcast, to listen before you respond, because emotional responses can take it so far to where you're regretting everything that you said and everything that happened in the situation. Whether it's a relationship situation, work situation, friendship situation, family situation. No matter what it is, our reactions are important. The way that we react to things are important. The way that we react to things can, determines the outcome of everything. So just, take pause and remember that, your peace is the most expensive thing that you own. And, it's important to pause and think before we speak. I hope this episode resonates with you in some kind of way, and I hope that you will find a way back to Lola Speaks Podcast, and that you can listen to this message a year from now, a month from now, 2 days from now, and say that this helped you become a better you. I hope that this episode is something that you feel the need to share with someone. I hope that you find the need to share this episode with someone who you feel reacts out of emotions instead of logical thinking, because thinking logically can save your life, save your relationships, save a lot of things that you want to salvage. So yeah, I love y'all to life and after life. Thank you so much for listening to Lola Speaks Podcast, and stay tuned for Mindful Mondays because it's coming up, because Monday is the start of the week and Monday is always the worst day for a lot of people, and I just want y'all to stay mindful on Monday so that we can push through for the rest of the week. Bye.